That moves us to our, thank you, Ms. Tucker. That moves us to the discussion agenda, the discussion of the strategic plan amendments.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, coming to the lectern is our Chief of Student Services and Planning, Dr. Mike Harris, to bring us our strategic plan amendments for 2022 through 2027.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ross, members of the board, community. We have before us our current strategic plan that we want to take an opportunity to review and offer some amendments. I want to certainly give credit to Ms. Audrey Black, who will come forward in just a moment to kind of walk us through that, as well as a number of persons who have worked with her to make these amendments available to you. So at this time, we'll turn the floor over to Ms. Audrey Black in terms of strategic plan amendments 22 through 27.
So good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Ross, and members of our community. Thank you for the opportunity to present a high-level overview of our strategic plan and recommended updates for the 25-26 school year. Before we dive into any questions from the proposed changes provided in your board packet, I want to take a moment to briefly explain what a strategic plan is and why it's important. South Carolina state law requires all school districts to develop a 5-year strategic plan, with schools creating their own 5-year renewal plans. Both are updated annually. These plans serve as blueprints, which guide administration in supporting our district's mission and vision. Here in District 5, our schools and the Cates Center align their renewal plans with the district's strategic plan to ensure consistency and focus. These same regulations require that every district and school include goals in 3 key areas. Those are school climate, academic achievement, and teacher and administrator quality. Additional regulations require districts to set goals for gifted and talented education, integrating those plans into the broader strategic planning process. So for consistency, I'm capitalizing on one of Dr. Ross's slides. Strategic plans include multiple components, which include a comprehensive needs assessment, performance goals, interim performance goals, strategies and action plans, evaluation of those strategies, evidence of comprehensive consensus building, and assurances. As Dr. Ross often reminds us, our strategic plan is made up of 4 performance goal areas, with each of these performance goals being supported by 6 strategies. These strategies are in turn supported by 165 action steps that serve as a practical guide to achieve our mission and vision. The next series of slides will dive deeper into each of the district's performance goals areas. Our goal for school climate asserts that we will maintain a safe and secure environment focused on the social and emotional growth of all students, as measured by the perceptions of parents, teachers, and students. Like all of our goals, this is a SMART goal, meaning it is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. On the slide before you, you'll see our baseline data on the left, our target outcomes on the right, and our annual interim benchmarks in between, with the latest data highlighted in bold. As you can see, our district has high satisfaction rates among parents, students, and teachers regarding the social and physical environment of our schools. We've already exceeded our projected goals for both parents and students. Our 5-year target for parent satisfaction was 89%, and this past year it reached 89.3%. For students, our 5-year target was 84.6%, and we surpassed that with 84.8% satisfaction. Teacher satisfaction also increased this year, with 93% of teachers satisfied with the social and physical environment of our schools. We are well on our way to meeting our goal. We are currently in this year's climate survey window, which these results are based from. So this window closes on April 11th. So far, we have received 3,954 parent surveys. That is the highest return rate thus far for any school district in the state so far. So we still have a couple weeks, but I'm hoping we're going to stay on top. So all of our schools have scheduled teacher and student survey time slots, with a goal of 90% completion for both groups. So the state requires 80%, we're aiming for 90. So far, 11 schools have met their goal for teachers, and 8 schools have met it for students. So most of the remaining schools are scheduled to complete their surveys this week. Our second goal focuses on academics and establishes that we will provide challenging curricula that support academic growth and prepare students for college and career success, as measured by median student growth percentile on MAP, graduation rates, and college and career readiness. As with school climate, the slide before you outlines the target outcomes, interim benchmarks, and the latest data in bold. Our first 2 goals focus on the median student growth in math and reading for students grade through 2 through 8, as measured by NWEA MAP. A growth percentile of 50 indicates that on average, students are growing at the same rate as their peers nationwide. A percentile above 50 means they are growing at a faster rate than their peers, while a percentile below 50 shows slower growth. Although we did see a decline from the previous year, the district is still meeting its target growth percentile of 55 in math. In reading, we are just 3 percentile points away from reaching our target growth percentile of 56. For our graduation rate, it increased this past year, rising from 89% in 2022-23 to 89.4% in 23-24. The percentage of students who are college and career ready has also improved from our baseline. In 23-24, it reached 82%, which is 4 percentage points above our target goal. A district is only as strong as its educators. Our third goal ensures that we recruit, retain, and develop a highly effective and diverse team. We measure our progress through teacher retention rates, teacher satisfaction with working conditions, and teacher feedback on professional development. As with the other goals, our targets and interim benchmarks are on the slide before you. At 89.5%, our teacher retention rate is nearing our interim goal. At 93.1%, teacher satisfaction with current working conditions has already surpassed our goal of 92%. We also saw growth in the percentage of teachers who agree there are relevant professional development opportunities, increasing from 90.7% to 90.9%. Our fourth and final goal focuses on challenging our highest achieving students by providing challenging instruction through an honors framework focused on the academic development of students in gifted programs and to provide equitable opportunities for participation in gifted programs. We measure our progress by analyzing median student growth percentiles in MAP, math, and reading, advanced placement passage rates, and participation rates of underrepresented students in higher level courses. As noted in your board packet in the table of proposed changes, this goal was previously worded as providing challenging curricula, but we are recommending an update to challenging instruction through an honors framework to better clarify our focus. Since this goal contains multiple metrics, we have split them across slides. Once again, we are looking at the fall to spring median student growth percentile. For our high-achieving students in grades 2 through 8, the goal is 58 for math and 55 for reading. In the 23-24 school year, our students reached a median 57th growth percentile in math and 46 in reading. Before you are the final 2 goals for our gifted and talented students. Advanced placement passage rates have risen over the past 2 years, reaching 76.2% this past year, which is 8.2 percentage points above our target. The district is also increasing participation rates for underrepresented students in higher level courses. Growth has remained steady at the elementary level, rising from a baseline of 17.1% to 19.9% in 2023-24. At the middle school level, with the steady progress at the elementary and middle school levels, we anticipate this momentum carrying into the high schools. Our baseline was 49.1%, and in 23-24, the percentage was 47.7%. So with our current trends, we expect to see continued increases. Our district strategic plan follows the South Carolina Continuous Improvement Model. Once a plan is approved by the School Board of Trustees and the South Carolina Department of Education, it becomes the district's roadmap for the next 5 years, with annual updates to ensure we stay on track. Our strategic plan is a dynamic, living document that guides decision-making across our district. Each strategy has a designated lead who works with stakeholders to evaluate progress, gather feedback, and make necessary adjustments. This update marks year 4 in our current 5-year cycle. Next year, we will begin an 18-month process to develop the next strategic plan, which will take effect in the 27-28 school year. In your board packet, you'll find the administration's recommended updates for 25-26. As you are aware, the strategic plan is extensive and details work that has transpired over the last 3 years. Therefore, we've put the updates in a manageable format at the end of the plan, and I'm happy to review any parts of that with you tonight. So at this moment, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? All right, thank you so much. We are going to take Exhibit L and Exhibit M together, items 19 and 20, the discussion of board policy, KF, community use of school facilities.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Coming to the lectern is our Chief Operational Officer, Dr. Gerald Geary, to take us through the discussion of Exhibit L and Exhibit M.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ross, and good evening again. The Office of Operations brings to you Board Policy KF, Community Use of Schools Facilities, for discussion. It is Exhibit K in your packet. As you begin your discussion, we ask that you consider 2 things. The policy does not currently have any guidelines about animals on district property. We recommend, the administration recommends prohibiting animals other than official purposes, service dogs on district property, due to the potential unnecessary damage to school property. And the policy does not currently specify what type of nonprofit community groups are allowed to use school facilities. Recommendations specify what type of documents are required for nonprofit. Is it just 501(c), or can other documents be included? And what type of groups are restricted? And if so, can that decision be appealed?
Does anyone have thoughts on that? I would agree that we should prohibit animals other than service, animals, strictly because of the damage issue, which I assume is just more money to the district, so, and property damage and whatnot. I don't know if other people feel differently about that. Nobody seems to have thoughts on it. So this says that we should consider specifying what type of documents are required. So currently, there's a policy for groups to use it. What's been in discussion here is the fees associated, just based on feedback we've gotten from the community. But what kind of documents are they already having to provide? Is my first question. And then secondly would be, why are we asking for the same documents from anybody?
Well, some may provide 501(c) status, but all nonprofits may not have that status, may have applied for that status. So is that the only requirement to be considered nonprofit and have use of our facilities? What additional documentation, or what could be provided in lieu of that if they do not have that status?
If they don't have that document or that status, doesn't that make them not a nonprofit?
Some just may not want that tax advantage. They may not apply for that tax advantage status.
Then I don't know how we prove that.
I'll give an example. Some PTOs in the past in districts I worked may not have a 501(c) status. They don't yet have that. There's some church organizations that may not have that, maybe in the process of getting it, but may not have that, but may want access to facilities.
There's that slippery slope. Because, well, with the PTOs, it's like such a thing that's easily verifiable because they're within our schools. You know, when I feel like people know if a church exists, I don't know. I don't know the answers to that. Does anybody else have a thought? Ms. Satterfield?
And excuse me if I ask a question that, on something you already answered. My hearing is not getting any better as the night goes on. I think everybody on the board, we've expressed concerns, and this is not directed at anybody. It's just our concerns with, we have students. The young lady that spoke earlier in public participation, I used to coach basketball, and I hated making cuts, and I hated the fact that I had 100 kids out there trying out, and I was going to end up with 13 on the team. When I was an assistant principal at Dutch Fork High School, where you formerly were, I started an intramural program, got the blessings of the high school league, and so we were able to use our facilities for our intramural, just to get more kids involved. And I think that's the key thing that everybody's sort of shared, is how to make our facilities more affordable or available to our students. And I'm not talking about an outside entity, or, you know, I understand that with the nonprofits and things like that, but I think that's a discussion that's worth having, is finding a way for our students. I mean, you know, again, like a lot of parents or grandparents, I've coached some of the, you know, younger kids, and I never got paid for it, and I understand that there are insurance issues, and that's probably the biggest driver of a lot of these fees. I think it's worth discussing, because the key to students being successful is keeping them actively involved, especially with school. I don't care if it's after school or not. And you know that, you're a former principal. When we talked a little bit about maybe the old complex or something along those lines, something that we have available to us already, and I was looking at the dates. It was issued in '83, and it's been revised a number of times, and I'm sure that the price has gone up each time. And I know this is just part of the discussion agenda. I just think that it is definitely worth the effort to find a way to meeting the needs. You know, years ago, the school was the heartbeat of the community. Schools were built right in the middle of your neighborhoods, and different organizations and maybe town meetings or community meetings and all that were held there. But if we've got kids that want to be actively involved in programs, I think it's worth investigating and looking for solutions.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'll, a couple of comments and then a couple of questions. The way I view this is there's a cost to using our facilities. And what our policy does is simply determine who pays that cost. And currently, whatever that cost is, it's written to where the specific user of the facilities is the party who pays the cost of using it, which has its advantages and disadvantages. But some of the advantages is all taxpayers aren't responsible for a specific group's cost of using our facilities. A disadvantage of that is it makes the cost sometimes prohibitive to some groups and more widespread use perhaps. But that's also, if we change the policy to where we take the cost off of the specific user, the cost doesn't go away, it just gets redistributed. So we're taking it from the specific user and then spreading it out to the district, because if the user doesn't pay it, then the district has to pay it, which means the taxpayers pay it. And that can be advantageous by encouraging wider use of our facilities, but also has downsides. Anybody that, you know, we already have people talking about we're overtaxing. Well, that just increases our tax need and our tax burden, perhaps. It also comes into play where if you have a group, or if certain taxpayers don't want to pay the cost of a certain group, if the, I don't know, transgender, MAGA, Christian, Muslims, rich people who hate puppies groups soccer team wants to rent our facilities, somebody's not going to be happy about that. And they're going to say, our funds, I don't want to have to pay my tax dollars to fund that group's use of the facility. So that's a consideration that we have to think of as well. So there's advantages and disadvantages to it. And I'm all for the discussion as long as people understand that if we take the cost, the more we take the cost off the specific user, then it puts it on all taxpayers. And that's fine, but the people need to understand that that's the result, and that's how the impact of it. For Dr. Ross, I have a couple of questions regarding our current fee structure. How representative is our current fee schedule to our actual costs that we see for the use of those facilities? In other words, does this current fee schedule result in a net gain or a net loss to our budget, or is it meant or intended to be budget neutral and just reflect actual cost? Are we making a profit? Are we losing money? And what's our intent?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Scully. When we were originally looking at this, we went back through and looked at the cost for different types of personnel that would be required to staff facilities, whether it's a custodian, to have an administrator there with the keys for access to the building. If it's for an auditorium, you've got to have somebody that can run the equipment, so AV or IT folks there. If there's student nutrition, those costs. And if we needed to provide security. So we went back and looked at those costs. And for most of the folks that would be working these events, it's going to end up being overtime. So we were calculating those costs based on paying them overtime, and we are not making money. We were just covering the cost. The current policy doesn't have updated salaries, hasn't had updated salaries in years. So even looking at the current facility cost, what it would take, we would just be breaking even.
You know, I'm completely fine with changing it or exploring options, but the cost doesn't disappear. In fact, it's probably going to increase, like Mr. Satterfield said, due to insurance liability. So somebody's got to pay for that. It doesn't go away. So that's part of the discussion.
Yeah, it was mainly a question about liability. In the policy, it says that the organizations will assume liability for every occurrence that takes place during their use. So they would have to have liability insurance to even have a contract to use our facilities. Is that correct?
That is correct. When they go through ML Scheduler, before they can create an account, they have to create a certificate of liability. They have to upload that, bring it to the DO, present it to us before they can create a user account and have access for approval to the facilities.
Right. Okay. That's what. Thank you.
I remember we had this discussion, it was on the agenda maybe a year or so ago. This was a discussion that we had previously within the last board about a year or so ago. I think it had something to do with like one of the fields behind the schools. It wasn't like an official, it's the property, but it wasn't officially being used as a field or something like that. So are we talking kind of in specifics here, or are we, is there something that brought this discussion up again, or could you expand on that?
Yeah, so I think that was the, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was the baseball field that was behind H.E. Corley that has been in kind of an agreement that another, I think the Irmo Baseball uses. So this would be more encompassing of all of our facilities, having one policy that meets all of them. And what we wanted to do today was just kind of hear your feedback. We haven't made any amendments we would like to use next meeting to bring some amendments. But as you can see, there are just two items that we needed to we have some recommendations, wanted to hear your feedback. Like as Dr. Gary said, there's multiple different types of nonprofits. We're letting all nonprofits, or we're going to be restrictive of different types. Not all of them are 501c3. Some of them have different tax breakdowns. So I think that would take care of the baseball issue, and I think we heard from a basketball parent at our last meeting.
At the last meeting.
We're trying to find something more inclusive of all. I'm sorry, Dr. Gary.
And that's what I'm gonna say, Ms. Barnhart. I think a lot of it is because of the parent complaints and feedback about accessibility to the facilities, but more so the fees that are associated with it. I don't know that I didn't think the discussion was whether it was gonna be free. I thought the discussion was whether or not we would be willing to adjust it for specific programs that are servicing our students. And I know that that gets sketchy because everybody thinks that their program is the program, but I do think we have to draw a line somewhere, and there have to be some parameters, and I don't know how we do that without alienating people. That seems like a question for legal and not for me, but I do think that's something we need to think about and try to define as much as possible. Did you have another question before I cut you off? I'm sorry.
Just one more on the recommendation to change from Office of Finance and Operations to Office of Operations throughout the document. Is that simply just because the name has changed now within the district, and so we're just reflecting the policy to
That is correct.
apply that? Okay.
Mr. Satterfield, did you still have a question?
I'll be short. Yeah, I agree with everything just about that everybody said, because this is synergy. When you listen to everybody's ideas, and then eventually you can arrive at a conclusion. And that's really important to have these discussions, as I said earlier. You know, one thing that I learned long ago was that if you're looking at a straight line on how it was done and how we can fix it based on how we've done it before, sometimes it doesn't always work. As a former coach, I used to visit with other coaches and ask questions and get ideas, and I would learn a great deal. So, you know, maybe looking or visiting or asking some other schools, some of our surrounding schools or something, see what they do. I get back, I think my original exposure to this was from our Screaming Eagles, our special education students. And they couldn't get a place to practice for their sports on school grounds, and there are students. And so they had to buy a piece of property in Newberry County, I believe. I'm not 100% sure that that's right, but I think that's accurate. And, you know, that's not what our school should be about. It should be about all our students. And this is coming from a former coach, and I was very protective of my gym and my football field. But again, I'd like for us to have this discussion and sort of maybe ask around and get some input from some other folks, and maybe we can at least make it a little bit better, more accessible.
I was just going to quickly ask Dr. Ross, would our SCISBIT insurance increase or decrease with expanding the access?
Yes, we reached out to Lyde Graham with SCISBIT, and he is going to give us an opinion from their attorney. Their attorney is going to put that together, and I think we'll take that opinion and include that in our recommendation for next meeting. But we did not get the pricing increase yet. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Very quickly, do you think it would be possible to get some representative fee schedules from the other districts, just so we can see how we compare?
Yes, I thought
It's in the packet.
It is, I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
must have
we've
missed
got
that
Lexington
then.
1, Lexington 2,
Oh, thank you, I'm
Richmond
sorry, I
1, and
missed that.
Richmond 2.
Dr. Ross, as you and your staff started to talk about this internally, were there any glaring concerns that came up in your discussion that you think would be beneficial to us as we think about our feedback?
Yeah, so I think to Mr. Scully's point, the question was, would expanding access increase risk? And the answer was yes. So we wanted to look at the safeguards that we can put in place that would minimize that. And I think the consensus that I'm hearing is our students. If we're taking in our students or using it for our students, that is something that we want to expand access, but put those safeguards around because we want to give our students access. So that's a big part. I think what we could do is if we look at the rule and kind of go through the rule, that will give us a little bit more idea of what this actually looks like. So we were looking at it as a big policy, but if Dr. Gary, if you want to kind of go through the rule,
I will.
then that will give us, how does this actually look on the ground?
Administrative Rule KFR, Community Use of School Facilities. It's kind of like what we talked about. Priority for groups requesting, including school groups, is not established, and it's unclear which groups are required to pay which fees. Something to consider, add a user group category list to identify which priority each type of group is scheduled and the fees that pertain to each. For example, it could be your booster clubs, your PTO, that could be a priority one, no fees attached. And you may have Irmo Chape and Rec, or the Good News Club, church group, might be a group two. No fees or smaller fees, and put different groups and categories associated with fees. Something to consider. The level of personnel required for the events is unclear. Recommendation, the school administrator will designate what personnel will be required for the event, and the school designee will review conditions and expectations for use of the facility with the organization prior to payment. So they will submit the request, the administration receives it. He said, we're gonna need, based on the number of people attending, we'll need 1 custodian, two custodian security, send out coordinated information with the person requesting as well as fees, and they can make informed decisions at that point. But right now, people don't know exactly, if I'm gonna rent this facility, do I need one custodian, 2 custodians? What's the rationale of that? And having that conversation prior to them making a decision.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
quick question. Mr. Herring had a good question, and I just want to kind of go back to that. When he asked, you know, how do we compare to other district fee schedules? And I just want to emphasize a little bit of caution when making that comparison, because we don't exactly resemble other districts from a need and population standpoint, and whereas it would be easy to get trapped in that comparison if we're looking at a highly rural district and comparing ourselves to a highly rural district where the vast majority, if not all of the people who would use their facilities come from their district, whereas our district has more urban, more population, more spillover from other districts and other areas, and so we get a lot of requests, I would imagine, from outside groups coming in. So doing a kind of a rote just comparison on the nominal numbers, dollar amounts, would be kind of misleading. So I would just urge caution as far as making those types of comparisons, but it is something to consider.
Ms.
Madam Chair?
Barnhart?
I have a motion. I move that we adjourn this meeting at 9:05.
Well, all right then. Do I have a second? Before we say that, Dr. Gary, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if how helpful we were as we just kind of thought about this out loud, but I think we're gonna lean on the administration to maybe just kind of help give us a little bit of guidance. I think we are in agreement that we want to serve our community and we want to help, you know, in some way, because it seems to be an issue, but I want to better understand what that is and what that's going to look like, mainly around how are we going to determine, looks like we need to clean up who's going to get what, and I feel like that would solve a lot of our issues. So I guess we'll just continue this conversation at the next meeting.
All right, thank you.
All right. All those in favor of Ms. Barnhart's motion? Oh, I thought I heard a second. I made it up. Can I get a second?
Second.
It's a little early, my bad.
All those in favor? All opposed? And the motion passes. Meeting is adjourned. Y'all have a good night.